don't have to be perfect. You don't have to do all of the things that you think you're supposed to be doing in order to move the needle. We just got to figure out what to be consistent with. And so first and foremost, for many of us, our recovery is actually the bottleneck. And it's not that we're not doing enough. It's about working smarter, not necessarily harder. And I'll talk about what that looks like. But the recovery in the aspect of like your stress levels, your sleep, your hormones, and your overall workload, all of these things are going to impact your results. And if you are in your late 30s or 40s, 50s, and 60s, then your recovery from your training is just as important, if not more important than the training itself. What is going on, my friends? Welcome back to another episode of the Smart Nutrition Made Simple show. I'm your host, as always, Ben Brown, owner and head coach here at Body Systems. We're an online nutrition and fitness coaching company, but what we really do here is we help highly driven men and a few brave women build unshakable confidence and limitless self-belief, ultimately so that you can be magnetic in your life, attracting the things that you want, that you know that you deserve, and repelling the things that you don't, right? Repelling the things that don't matter to you, that aren't serving you, and that are just getting in the way of your success. And so in today's episode is for you if you're feeling stuck. Perhaps you've been successful in your career, you're a decision maker, you're an executive, a business owner, you consider yourself a high-performing man, woman, parent, who knows what discipline looks like, yet your body's not reflecting the effort that you're putting in. Now, here's the hard truth. What got you here won't get you there. The workouts that worked for you in your 20s aren't cutting it now. The restrictive diets that helped you drop pounds before are potentially backfiring. You tell yourself that your metabolism isn't what it used to be, and your mindset of quote unquote, just try harder is leaving you frustrated, exhausted, and feeling like maybe this is as good as it gets, or it's all downhill from here. The good news is it's not. In today's episode, I'm going to break down exactly why your old plan is failing you, why the mindset shift and what the mindset shift is that you need to make, how to train, eat, and recover differently in this season of life so that you can build the strong and confident and capable body that matches the man or woman that you've become. This episode isn't about working harder. It's about learning how to work smarter, because you're not here to settle for mediocrity. You're here to evolve and grow and experience challenge and build the skills and the tools that are going to drive and continue to reinforce long-term success. And that's what this is all about. So I'm glad to have you here. Excited to dive in. Without further ado, let's go. As always, you guys know me, Ben Brown, owner, head coach here at Body Systems. We're an online nutrition and fitness coaching company. And actually, I shouldn't just say online, because I'm going to say hybrid here, because as of late, we're doing more and more in-person stuff here in Phoenix and Scottsdale that involves a more in-person training, more group training with our existing clientele. And honestly, I put a little teaser out here, is more in-person events to come to hang out with me, to train, to move, get outside, to eat some good food and learn the behaviors and the tools that you can take with you to take ownership over your life, to build your own personal operating systems, and ultimately so that you can be the CEO of your health and fitness. So if that's something that you're interested in, watch this space and feel free to shoot me a message or schedule a strategy call down at the link below. I'd be happy to chat through that with you, and I'll share more as we progress. But in today's conversation, I'm excited for this one. This is a solo podcast episode here. And what we're discussing, what I'm going to talk about with you today, is the title's What Got You Here Won't Get You There, and why your old plan is failing you now. And the impetus for this conversation is really rooted in the type of clientele that I work with. You know, those hard charging men and women in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, and in some cases, certainly in their 30s. But these are entrepreneurs, executives, business owners, working professionals, decision makers, financial planners, real estate agents, lawyers, doctors. And if that's you, even just, busy moms and dads that are serious about making change in their life and they're tired of spinning their wheels, doing the same things year after year, decade after decade. And the problem that we run into here is, in my experience, and again, this is having done this over the past 20 plus years now, legitimately, I've been coaching individuals since 2003, which is when I started my master's program at Arizona State University in strength and conditioning. I've worked with all walks of individuals, sports teams, Fortune 500 companies, consulted with professional sports teams and athletes. But really, I work with men and women just like you and me. I mean, I'm a small business owner, husband, father of 3. My kids are 15, 13, and 10. And man, we are in the beginning of summer here, and we're just getting our butts kicked with the day-to-day and the change and lack of structure and schedule that we have in place. And if you're a parent with kids in school, I guarantee that you can resonate with how that feels, of a complete shift in schedule. The kids are around more. They're frankly annoying in the best way possible. But yeah, I was just having a conversation with someone, with clients, every day, but with someone this morning where it's like, I had, my daughter's at sport performance training at 6 a.m. And then my son had to go to golf camp, and that was from 8 to 11. And then engineering camp from 12 to 4. And then he goes to sport performance. And then my daughters go to volleyball. And then the other one goes to guitar and band practice. And it's like this whirlwind, vicious cycle of nonstop responsibility. And with all of that stuff, it's like, how are we supposed to prioritize ourselves, to say nothing of getting actual work done during the day? And this is the biggest shift. This is the biggest mindset shift that is required for men and women like us to realize and to experience and to understand that we have to change our expectations. Because hey, you know what I love? I love the saying that we all have the same 24 hours. And oftentimes the people that say this are like 22-year-old personal trainers. And they're like, I don't understand why it's so hard for you to get 8 hours of sleep and get your 10,000 steps per day and prep your 5 meals per day and, prioritize your strength and conditioning and your nutrition and take your supplements and all this stuff. And based on everything that I just laid out, it's like, it's a miracle if I can get 6 hours of sleep and get my training in 3 days a week. And you get what I'm saying here. And so this is very much why our lives look very, very different now than they did 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. And it's also the exact same reason why we have to shift our expectations, which is also why we have to shift our training methodology. Is not just because of time limitations, but it's also because of physical adaptation, I'll say, is because our bodies change as we get older. And we've been through a lot. We've been through a lot of stress. You've been through stress in business. You've been through maladies, whether it's health-related issues, whether it's joint-related issues, just the accumulation of stress over the years, it takes its toll. And that's why thinking that we should be doing the same things now that we did in our 20s and 30s is part of the reason that we're stuck where we are. And so many of the conversations that I have with clients and prospective clients every single day are rooted in the faulty expectations. They're rooted in the faulty expectations that I know what to do and I just need to commit. I just need to try harder. I just need to do more. I'll do it when the time is right. And in my opinion, that's the wrong way of thinking about things. And so the reality here is it's not that you're out of shape because you're lazy. You're out of shape because you're trying to train and you're trying to eat like you did when you were in your 20s. And that's when your body and your lifestyle and your priorities, and that's when your lifestyle and your priorities and your body were in very different positions, is what I'm trying to get across here. And so that's really what I want to speak to, is how we can shift our mindset, because you're not wrong for thinking this way. It's perfectly natural for us to go back to and to reflect on, well, if those things worked for me in the past, there's no reason why they shouldn't work for me now. But because of everything that I already described and explained, and hopefully you can understand why life is very different now. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing. And I assure you, you don't need to do nearly as much as you think you do. And that's the biggest shift that I'm trying to make here. And I'm going to explain to you why that is and how we can think about it differently and some of the science behind it, and so that hopefully it will give you permission to acknowledge that you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to try and do all of the things that you think you're supposed to be doing in order to move the needle. We just got to figure out what to be consistent with. And so first and foremost is, for many of us, our recovery is actually the bottleneck. And it's not that we're not doing enough, which oftentimes, listen, if you are currently training in any way, shape, or form, then you're already ahead of probably 90% of the population. And so it's about working smarter, not necessarily harder. And I'll talk about what that looks like. But the recovery in the aspect of like your stress levels, your sleep, your hormones, and your overall workload, all of these things are going to impact your results. And if you are in your late 30s or 40s, 50s, and 60s, then your recovery from your training is just as important, if not more important, than the training itself. And so we really have to look at, how are we optimizing this training window? How are we feeling ourselves around our training? How are we approaching training strategically and scientifically and structurally, to the degree that we know we're committed, we're doing enough of the things that are going to drive progress relative to our goals. So my goal is gaining lean muscle tissue. Am I doing enough intentional volume, and what I'll say is intense volume, to move the needle there? Similarly, if my goal is to improve my cardiovascular fitness, but all I'm doing is circuits, strength training circuits in the gym, well, then that might not be the most logical way to approach improving our aerobic fitness and cardiovascular health. Similarly, is like, if my goal is just to lose body fat and I'm absolutely annihilating myself with CrossFit workouts or doing some combination of strength training and, metabolic conditioning for all intents and purposes, well, that might not be, it might be way more than we actually need relative to our ability to sleep, our joint health, and our existing nutrition. So we've got to zoom out and we've got to look at our recovery there and make sure that we're kind of factoring that in. Now, the big one that I want to touch on is more is not better. Better is better. It's better training. It's more appropriate amounts of volume. It's doing the least effective dose. Are we doing enough to drive a response, but not so much that it's overkill? And this really, it's very individualized, my friends. Like, this really has to do with our existing training age, our stress levels, our physiological load. It's very hard to say what that actually looks like, but I will speak to just some generalities based on the research. Are we taking rest days? And this is really the law of diminishing returns, to understand, like, there's a certain amount, a certain dose that's going to get a response. Doing more and more and more of that doesn't lead to better and better results. So we have to figure out where the dose response is for us. If you're newer to training, you don't need to do as much. If you've been in the gym like me for 30 years, you're probably going to need a little bit higher amount of volume to actually drive, for example, hypertrophy, increasing the size of the lean muscle tissue. However, by that same token, because you're so well trained, you might not need a ton just to maintain it. I could hit legs once a week with working up to 1 to 2 heavy sets per exercise, and I'm pretty good there just maintaining strength in my legs. Whereas, for someone who's new, they might need to do more to actually drive appreciable strength and, again, lean muscle tissue. So this is where we have to focus on the intensity, the movement quality, and the frequency that fits your life, right? If you can only train 3 days a week, then that's fine. And you can't give yourself a hard time over the fact that you think you need to be doing 4 to 5, because all too often, when we say, well, I'm committed to training 4 days a week, and then something happens and you can't get in your training session, you're like, crap, well, I'm not going to get 4 this week, so why bother doing any of it? It's completely illogical way of thinking, yet so many of us do it. Or you're relegating yourself to an overly restrictive dieting plan, and something happens, right? Kid needs you, sick kid, you don't get a good night of sleep. Then you wake up, you end up eating junk for breakfast because you took the kids to Starbucks, and you're like, screw it. I'll start again tomorrow, or I'll start again Monday, or this just isn't working out for me, when that's the wrong way of looking at things. In terms of, I hope that's resonating with you, because again, this is something that I'm just encountering so frequently. And so many guys and women are getting discouraged because they're not able to follow through with all of the things that they think they're supposed to be doing. And again, their expectations are totally unrealistic. But when I say more is not better, better is better, in terms of like volume in the gym, just from a research standpoint, based on the work of Brad Schoenfeld, who's a pretty reputable strength training researcher in the quote unquote evidence-based community, the research suggests that 10 to 20 sets per muscle group per week is kind of the gold standard. Now, again, this is going to totally depend on your training age. If you're new to training, then maybe we only need, 8 to 10 sets per muscle group. So for example, if we are looking to increase our muscle mass and we're new to training, we might now only need to do 8 sets of chest exercises. That could be on one day doing 4 sets of bench press. On another day, it could be doing 4 sets of chest flies or incline bench press, as an example. It's not a ton of volume, but you could get a significant benefit from that. Similarly, for someone who's been in the gym for years and years and years, like I have, and I'm actually looking to put on muscle tissue, I might need closer to 15 or 20 sets. So it's important to kind of understand how the volume is accumulating throughout the week. Now, within the sets, the cool part here, and this is really enlightening and something that's come to fruition over the last few years, is really kind of absolving us of this strength continuum. The old school belief is that, strength and power was anywhere from 1 to 5 reps. And then from 6 to 8 reps is pure strength. And 8 to 12 is kind of functional hypertrophy. Then 12 to 15 is more hypertrophy. Then 15 to 20 reps is more muscular endurance. And what we actually see is that anywhere from 5 to 30 reps any and all of those can be beneficial depending on the person for muscle hypertrophy and for muscular strength. So we could have one group that's training, 5 to 7 reps. We could have another group that's training 20 to 25 reps, and they could have similar gains in terms of strength and lean muscle tissue depending on the person, which is really, really cool. And what I really love and appreciate about the fact that we can train through different ranges is then we can apply it to different exercises. We can apply it to the individual and how they're feeling on that given day. And what I do for a lot of clients is we'll really just kind of make a menu of exercises to suggest that depending, we might have a day of leg press where we're shooting for 10 to 12 reps. We might have another day of leg press where we're shooting 25 to 30 reps. And it's just kind of how the person is feeling and how they want to challenge themselves that day. And it gives us a really great spectrum to work with in terms of where they're seeing the biggest benefit and how things are adjusting. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't mention how intensity factors into this model, is because a lot of people are training with minimal intensity, and they're literally just wasting their time in the gym because they're not training with enough intent or intensity or purpose to actually challenge the muscles to adapt. And that's what strength training is all about. It's about stimulus and adaptation. And you have to be pushing enough weight for enough reps to create the stimulus that is going to challenge your body to adapt. And I see this every single day. I see this when my clients send me training videos. At the end of the day, the intensity that's going to drive results is working up to, around 1 to 2 reps in reserve. And that legitimately means that you could do 1, maybe 2 more reps with perfect form. We do not need to go to failure. And I often discourage going to failure with clients just because I don't think the risk is worth the reward in terms of our joint health. For me, the shoulders, low back, knees. I'm finding working with men and women, particularly guys, and stuff that we've done in the gym through sports is it's just too much of a risk. And again, the research suggests you don't need it. Like we can train 1 to 2 reps in reserve, even 3 reps in reserve, if you truly know that you're challenging yourself to that level. And there's a big difference because I think genuinely for a lot of people, they don't know what that looks like or feels like. But trying to do a 30 rep max leg press to 1 to 2 reps in reserve is a pretty tough gauge versus a 8 to 10 rep dumbbell bench press. I think a lot more guys and women, frankly, would be a lot more comfortable understanding what it feels like to get to that 8 to 10 reps with 1 to 2 reps in reserve versus like a all out leg press. And a lot of this really comes down to just mental fortitude and really digging in and kind of tapping into that pain threshold of how hard and how far you can push yourself. And the harder and more intense that you can train, frankly, the less volume that you'll need. That's what we're trying to identify here. So you're not just wasting time in the gym doing junk reps and junk volume. Now, moving on, when we talk about food, the old food rules don't serve you anymore. And this is where, listen, you've done this, I've done this, intermittent fasting, keto, low carb, the magic bullet pills and potions. Imagine trying to do that crap with the schedule that I just laid out with you, right? You're busy with work, you've got work travel, you're managing the kids, you're exhausted at the end of the day, especially at the end of the week, and you're trying to lean into some uber restrictive dieting plan. Like, listen, dude, it is just not going to happen for any appreciable amount of time. And so the objective, at least the way that we work with clients and the open and honest conversations and communication that we have, are really rooted in the fundamental pillars that you can focus on and how we set those standards and those non-negotiables around, protein forward eating, consistent energy intake, flexible structure, fiber, water, meal portion sizes, and frequency. Like, how many meals is reasonable for you? If you have snacks or shake, what does that consist of? And how do you navigate the daily ins and outs in a way, in terms of like legitimate planning and preparation, so you know how to think about making the right decisions? And that's what it all comes down to, is it all comes down to this level of autonomy of like, you're a grown adult. I say this all of the time. You need to know how to make decisions that are right for you. Just like your financial advisor is not going to tell you how to spend your money, but they're going to give you the tools and the systems and the strategy to budget appropriately and make decisions that are in line with your long-term goals. We're doing the exact same thing through our Prime Fit OS coaching model. So we're giving you the tools and the strategies and the systems, teaching you how to implement those behaviors into your lifestyle, how to leverage data to make informed decisions so that, again, you can be the CEO, you can be the owner here, you can make the decisions that are right for you. Some are going to go great, some are not. And you'll learn from those mistakes. You'll make better decisions next time. That's the name of the game here. Now, with respect to nutrition and training at this juncture, and here's the deal, it's like maybe what you did in your 20s and 30s wasn't necessarily the right thing to do, but it was something to the degree that you responded. And because you had less responsibility, because you were getting more sleep, because you were younger, because your joints were more limber, for lack of a better term, you're at better joint health, you just responded better. Whether it was right or wrong, it doesn't matter. You just responded. We just are not responding like we used to. Again, things change, hormones change, stress levels, gut health, recovery, all of that stuff. So at this point, we can't get away with that stuff. And that's why training without structure is a recipe for, I'm not going to say disaster, but it's a recipe for lack of progress. And this is where we can't just relegate ourselves to doing random workouts or the bro splits that we used to do, when we were younger. We need, based on everything that I'm explaining, your existing training age, your joint structure, the frequency that you can train, the equipment that you have available, any old injuries, what your goals are, all of these lend itself to you needing a structured and progressive and kind of scientifically based training and nutrition plan based around your lifestyle so that you can save yourself the time, money, and energy that you invariably have been pouring into trying to figure out how to get the results that hopefully that you want for yourself and that you're committed to getting. You just don't have a clear-cut strategy around how to do it. And you're just being cheap around not investing in someone who can help you bridge the gap between where you are now and where you want to go. And I say that in the most loving way possible. But if you don't think you can take advantage of an expert, whether it's me or someone else, to help you bridge that gap, then you're sorely mistaken. Or you just don't value your time as much as you probably should, right? As much as you probably should. So that's where having someone to help you shine light on the blind spots and build out the most realistic plan, who also is empathetic and understands the responsibilities and stressors that you're dealing with, it's just a non-negotiable in my mind. And that's why I have coaches. It's not like I totally know what to do, but I also need accountability. I need someone who I know is looking and who cares and who I'm accountable to say, yeah, I showed up today or I didn't show up and I'm making progress or I'm not making progress, and who's going to hold me to it and who's going to challenge me. I think if you're someone who's driven in business, then you're probably someone who can benefit from coaching. Then the last thing that I'm going to say here in terms of kind of this overall mental reframe around what got you here won't get you there is really the identity that we're trying to create here. You are in a very different position in life. And that's great. That's evolution. That's growth. That's wisdom. Like, I love this stage of life. I love all of the challenges that we have the opportunity to learn from and experience, and the level of wisdom that's created, and the opportunity to just look at things through a different lens. So much so, so much more so than I appreciated. And I'm sure you can agree with me when I was younger. And this is where I view it as kind of a responsibility and a privilege to step into this stage of life. I mean, I'm 46, and I feel like as challenging as things are at this stage of life, it's never have I been more emotionally and kind of mentally prepared to take on this level of ownership and identity of truly knowing who it is that I am, what I want for my life, and standing up for what I believe in and not catering to other people and being a people pleaser, which I've been subject to my entire life. This is for me, right? And what excites me is that I get to root into being a leader and being a father and continuing to be the owner of my health and learning how to be a better owner in my business and setting a great example for my kids and learning how to be a better husband and communicator and partner. And the same goes for my role in my community. So what I'll challenge you with is to look at what identity you're trying to create and how it's probably very different now than it was when you were younger, and how your daily behaviors are contributing to the reinforcement of that identity. Is you staying up late, watching Netflix, eating junk food, waking up, hitting the alarm, the snooze multiple times, being late, grabbing fast food, running through Starbucks and grabbing drinks? Is that the identity that you want to reinforce? Or is it that you are structured, you're prepared, you're strategic, you're committed to getting to bed at a reasonable hour, you're committed to getting up early before everyone else so that you can be productive, you're committing to setting a great example for your family, you're not the type of person who's going to miss a workout, you make your 10,000 steps a day a non-negotiable, you are, the list goes on and on and on. And you get to build that for yourself. It's just a bit of that mindset shift that we're looking to create here and for you to root into ultimately so that we can set realistic expectations. So it's not about slowing down. It's not about doing less. It's just about training smarter and kind of leveling up in the ways that you can. And it's certainly what it is about is not accepting mediocrity, but just getting more strategic, more consistent, and more dialed in to the degree that you can. And that comes with having a strategic plan of acknowledging what your responsibilities legitimately are and what your priorities are around business, around family, around your own health and wellness, and understanding the fact that when you prioritize yourself, everything in your life will get better. You will attract so much more of the things that you want. You will make so much more, you will create so many more non-negotiables on your life. And by that, in your life, and by that virtue, you will repel the things that you don't want. And that's the differentiator that I see every single day in working with clients. So listen, guys, if this episode hit home for you and you're ready to ditch the guesswork, if you're ready to get out of your own way, if you're finally ready to build a plan that fits with this season of life and is going to fit with all of the seasons so that you have the fundamental pillars in place, regardless of how chaotic and stressful things are, so that you always have a framework to work from and the non-negotiable behaviors to lead with, shoot me a message, grab a strategy call at the link down in the show notes, and I'd be happy to jump on a call and chat with you about what that might look like to work together. Hope this has been helpful for you. Appreciate you listening in. If it has, share it with someone whom you think can benefit. And of course, do me a solid and leave a 5-star rating and review and positive review in iTunes. Much love, guys. Talk to you later.